Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me directly through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is an internationally syndicated show solely due to the love and support that you all continue to show. We're available across all major podcast distributors, and like I mentioned, people, if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in because we are delighted to showcase this next guest on our network. And on the line with us today, we have the impressive Chris Adams. Now we're going to be discussing Chris's amazing autobiography, Final Approach, A Flight Through Life. Man, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's a lot of other places, but make sure you check out his personal website. That's literaryworks.com. Also, make sure to take note of the way it's spelled right there on the screen. You see, literary, traditional spelling, but works is WERKS.com. And make sure to spell it correctly, and you're going to want to do just that because once you head on over to the site, you're going to gather more information on him, on this amazing autobiography, but also bear in mind that Chris has been putting in some work, man. Okay, he's developed 12 other novels that you're going to want to get your hands on. So once again, that's literaryworks.com. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Chris here on the line. From the oil fields of Texas to the cockpit of a B-52, Chris Adams has lived a life few could imagine and even fewer could survive. All right, his autobiography, Final Approach, it isn't just a memoir, okay? It is a masterclass in resilience, in leadership, and defying the odds. But my question is how did a boy from the humblest of beginnings soar to such heights? What unseen battles were fought behind the scenes of history? And what can his extraordinary journey teach us about courage, about ambition, and the relentless pursuit of purpose? I mean, those are some important questions, ones that come to mind, and strap in because his book discusses just that. And this is one you are not going to be able to put down. Chris, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Benji. It's my pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, listen, Chris, the pleasure really is all ours, man. I really do mean it. It is a true delight, okay? Your background, man, your background, I think, is something fascinating. So your memoir is something I know a lot of our listening audience members are going to be able to gravitate towards, okay? It is a stroll down memory lane for you, but a wonderful insight for us. So we're looking forward to this. Now let's dive right in. First and foremost, Chris, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, about myself is quite simple. I grew up in a very small town of Tomball, Texas. Over near at the time, it was about 30 miles out of Houston. Now it's been absorbed by Houston, and 1,200 people when I grew up in it, all the way up through my high school graduation. Maybe 1,200 or so people. Now it's around 35, 40,000. So how things grow. But it was a good life, good parents, and really a fun town to grow up in without some of the clutter we have to deal with today.
Oh, well, listen, Chris, that's saying a lot, man, because there is a lot of clutter happening in the world today. We can have a long discussion just on that, okay? Chris, what I love about your background, about your journey, and about this autobiography is really that old adage that it was like, listen, as I'm listening to you talk and the research that I've done, it reminds me of the adage, pulling yourself up by your bootstrap. And I look at your journey, right? Starting off from just working out in those fields, right? In those oil fields in Texas to fund your education and so many others. There's something there that not only lends credence to you as an individual and your particular journey, what you've been able to go through and become, but also it lends so much wisdom to your readers, people that are listening into our show right now. There's a lot there to be taken, and that's in a way, that's really where I want to go next. And I want to start to touch up on that a little bit further. What would you say throughout your journey, throughout your experience, what was the most important lesson that you took from your experience beyond just making money?
Well, first of all, my mother and my father, my dad was an automobile mechanic, made as much money as he could to bring myself, my sister, and brother up, and my mother was a seamstress. Mm-hmm. And we had a very, very humble life, if you would, but a very joyous life in that little town we lived in. And I can't attribute it to much more than that. I was a Boy Scout with my mother's urgency and encouragement, and played a little bit of football. Not a star dog, but the coach let me play. I played a little bit of basketball. Small town, you could do that, you know. I graduated a class of 18 kids, and we all were good buddies when we graduated. And the urgency, I guess, or the backing that my mother gave me was to make good grades and graduate if you can from high school. Mm-hmm. And we got the money, we'll send you off to college, which they did. And my oil field money, as you mentioned, I worked in the oil fields every summer for my mother's brother and uncle out in Panhandle of Texas. And at $1.30 an hour, it was pretty darn good for 3 or 4 summers that I worked and saved every penny that I could.
Well, yeah, listen, you know, I know that was great money at the time, but man, listen, you say that now, and we're like, wait, hold on, how is that even possible, right? I mean, it doesn't even sound right. But you know, people, we're talking about a different time, okay? A different time with different requirements, man. And it's all amazing, I'm telling you. People, listen, again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. This is a book that you need to add to your shelf. Chris Adams is a name to be remembered, okay? He's got 12 other books. When you head on over to his personal website, literaryworks.com, you're going to want to get lost in all of them, because I promise you there is so much here to be harnessed. Remember, this one is called Final Approach, A Flight Through Life. But there's a lot of other ones to sink your teeth in. Head on over there today and pick up your copies. My next question that I want to go into now, Chris, listen, as I mentioned a moment ago, your writing journey has accumulated into 13 books so far, and hopefully many, many more on the horizon, man. We're looking forward to it, of course. Well, I'm curious to know, because this book is an autobiography, but it was not the first book that you've written. So what inspired you? What made you feel compelled to choose this particular time to put this book out? I mean, was there a particular catalyst that inspired you to write your autobiography now?
Well, I'm not quite sure I have all the details of that. I had just completed, as I mentioned a moment ago, 5 years working in Russia with the Russian people whom I'd worked with before over there after I long since out of the Air Force and working for contractors. I met a lot of personalities there and others that sort of stimulated me to talk about myself and talk about where I came from in the good old United States of America, and maybe impart some of that growing up and all the difficulties we have, because it was not easy growing up in our lifetime during those ages of the United States of America. And when I compare that, even, it was absolutely a godsend compared to the Russian people, if you will, and the Ukrainians, and I got to know them well. My favorite young buddy that I met with, and they gave him to me as a translator, interpreter, Sasha Katsanov. Sasha was about 35 years old, spoke absolutely fluent English, knew more American jokes and little spin-offs than you'd ever believe of a Russian who had never been to the United States before. I'd present something to him just as a off the side. Well, Kasha, Sasha, what do you think about this? And he listened to it, man. He said, Chris, that dog won't hunt. Let's do this. And what I'm trying to say is just down to common ground, common people. And I found myself in comparison to that. And so with regard to your question of what stimulated me to write this thing at this time, I was back from there. I retired, or called myself retired in 1992. And I looked outside. It was just one big, long tunnel out there, a glare in front of me. What am I going to do next now? I still have energy, enthusiasm. I'm going to stay busy. Got 4 young kids, bringing them up, 3 daughters and a son. And what can I do to demonstrate to them, or maybe write a little something that they might read one day and see how maybe difficult it was at times, and then how good it can be as you come closer to the end of the trail. And so that was sort of it. I've been questioned about the title Final Approach several times. What does that mean? And I said, well, I'm going to leave that to your interpretation. What is your final approach? What do you intend to do before you touch down on the runway, if you will? And I've been questioned about that several times. I've been told it's quite a dreary, weary title for a book. Why would you want to do that? But it spun up in my brain, and that's why I chose it, and then added a little subtitle to it as well about life. But still intriguing. I don't know if I told my wife when I finished that thing here a week or two ago when it was picked up by you folks out there. I said, this is my last book. I'm not going to write any more. I think she took a deep breath and said, I hope not. It does drive you. You know it from your own experience. It does.
Well, yeah, man. Listen, I'm right there with you, Chris. You got to have the passion. Right? It all starts there and builds from it. That is really the precipice of it all. And as an artist, I hear you, I respect it, and I understand because it resonates. And, you've done 13 so far. As I mentioned before, I'm going to continue to say it. Hopefully a lot more on the horizon. And that's really where I want to go next, man. I want to dive into another one of your books. As we begin to close out, choose another one of your titles. Tell us a little bit more about it so we know what to expect when we head on over there and pick it up.
Oh, my goodness sakes. I'd have to look up my bookcase and bookshelf and see what's up there. I did one entitled Dallas a few years ago, and it struck me, living in Dallas, being in Dallas when the horrible assassination took place. And so I worked on that, and I didn't receive any necessary criticism except for others that said, why did you write about that? Well, I just picked up the horror story of the assassination and grew up the guy that did it, and try to get into his mindset, mindful of why did he do this in the first place, what was his goal, what was his objective. And so that's what I did, and that was a little bit over the top. I have some others that I have to look at and see. I think one is of interesting, notable encounters. All the people, I sat down one day and decided I'm going to sit down and try to come up with the number of people I can, but the wonderful people that I've met in my lifetime, my brief lifetime since I got old enough to recognize that there were notable encounters out there, but I've met some most incredible people in the world and had the opportunity to meet them, not only that, but to sit down and talk with them occasionally and in many times, in many ways. In fact, just today, I was out for a walk with my dog, and the lady stopped me and said, I heard you're going to be on an interview. And I said, yes, I have. You ever done that before? And I said, well, I stumbled through a few years ago. She said, what are you going to talk about? And I said, well, I don't know. They're going to ask me. And I said, but I love to talk about people. I love to talk about people that I've met. And she said, well, tell me somebody. I said, well, I spent an hour talking to Roy Rogers and Dale Evans one day, standing beside an airplane out on the ramp in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I said, that was the most, another thrill of a lifetime to stand there and talk to this fella and his beautiful wife and what have you. But that's just an example, and to meet others along the way, which are also listed in this current book from time to time of encounters with people. encounters with yourself, as an example. I mean, fascinating people have fascinating careers, jobs, and what have you, and it just sort of opens up another mindset for you, if you will. But so notable encounters is one, and 90% of the people in there are not recognizable by folks that read the book, but they are by me and writing about them and memories and that sort of thing.
Well, Chris, I tell you, man, you know, it's interesting that you brought up these notable encounters. And listen, I thank you very much for including me in part of that list. But listen, bro, I look at your background and your accomplishments and things. Chris, you are absolutely a notable encounter for myself, for our listening audience, and for so many others, man. Honestly, I really do mean that. Your life has been something magnificent, and your journey is one to be admired. So the compliment goes right back there to you. People, you know where you gotta go. It's there on the screen, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Check out his personal website, literaryworks.com. We just finished discussing his book, Final Approach, A Flight Through Life. But remember, this book is just the start, because he's got 12 others that you're going to want to pick up. I promise you, there is something here for everyone, and something that you're going to just love getting lost in. You know where to go. Pick up your copies today. While you're at it, get it as a gift to add to someone else's shelf as well, so that they can enjoy it just as much. And these books have so much to offer. Chris, again, man, this has been an absolute honor. Okay, this has been a true delight to have you here with us. Thank you for writing these amazing books, but most importantly, thank you for being here with us to discuss them all through people of distinction.
My pleasure, and you're another notable encounter. It's been a pleasure, and